Well, welcome, Amy, to the Moms of Tweens and Teens podcast. So happy that you're here.
Me too. I'm so excited to talk to you. I love your show.
Oh, thank you. I am so excited to have you here because I haven't had anybody on to talk about sex, and you're the gal. I am just loving reading all of your stuff and listening to you and listening to your podcast. And you're funny, you're open, you're honest, you don't hold back. I
don't.
love her.
I don't. I might for y'all. I might for you. If you want to see the unedited, listen to the unedited version, listen to my podcast. It's Just Say This, but I'm with you now. I'm so excited. You have such good ideas for what we can talk about. And yeah.
Well, let's just dive right in. It was funny. I was preparing and I was like getting all nervous because having the conversation about sex, I just noticed like, oh my gosh, and I can feel it. And I'm thinking, how did you become the sex, love to talk about sex and become this sex expert on helping parents talk to their kids? Like, how did that come about?
It was not my, when I was in, a senior in high school, I did not say, you know what, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I actually sort of fell into it. I volunteered doing pregnancy, abortion, birth control counseling, STI counseling when I was in college, and I just fell in love with it. I loved helping people deal with, really difficult, uncomfortable situations. I loved talking about sexuality and educating them. And that is where I just got, developed my love of sexual health and sexual health education. And it was my hobby. I actually set up my work schedule so that I had a day off Fridays so I could volunteer. So I had a very cool boss at the time. And I just had assumed I was going to be an amazing sex talker when I had kids. I just figured I knew so much. I was so comfortable, confident. I talked to all kinds of people. Nothing much fazed me. And then Milo, who's my son, I was getting ready for a bath and he grabbed his penis and he said, "Hey, Mama, did you know?" And I stood there and I thought, oh no, please do not tell me it feels good to touch your penis.
Oh gosh.
Because I got nothing. And I'm standing there and I did the poker face, right? I did the poker face and I said, "What?" And he said, "I can see the veins in there where the blood goes." And I said, "Great, get in the bathtub." And that was my moment where I realized that I did not have a clue how to talk to a little person, about their body or sexuality. And I thought, all right, I got to sort this out for myself and my spouse and for Milo. And I started doing some research to try and sort out, like, when do we have these conversations? What's the best age? What should they look like? And that just led me down this path. And I learned all about early childhood sexual development, sexual abuse prevention, and how to talk with kids, like the best practices. And, this was 16 years ago. Wow. So things have changed. And I was like, all right, I love this. And so I also have a master's degree and my focus was in adult education. So I had all this information. And then I thought, oh, hey, I love teaching adults. I love talking about sex. So how about I just combine these two things? And so I did. And here we are, birds and bees and kids, 16 years later. And my child was 5 when I started my company, and now he's 21. And is that the right math? Sure, close enough. And he's 21. And of course, he was just mortified by my work for years and years and years. And now I think he's just really proud of me and finds it entertaining. Gets a lot of, what does your mom do? All right.
Especially now he's okay. I just want the moms to know, tweens and teens is most of the audience here.
Yeah.
And talk about mortified.
Oh yeah.
Talking about sex. And a lot of parents are listening. It's like ketchup, like ketchup. So what do you do when you feel like, oh my gosh, here we are in the tween years? And we're going to mostly talk today. Got to have you back, talk about dating and how to talk about sex, but mostly going to be talking about how to protect them from pornography.
Yeah.
Online, huge. I hear from moms all the time freaking out because they their kid has been exposed to pornography. They find out they've been watching pornography. They didn't know about it really. And I mean, there's no good pornography, but there's a lot of really bad stuff out there. And maybe they haven't even talked to them about sex yet, And so what would you say to the mom that is in that place and they're finding out their kid's been exposed?
Mm-hmm. It is such a unfortunate, it's such a problem. And it's just hard, and it's hard on everyone. And it is something that I think that parents really have their head in the sand about. They think my kid would never, and they don't think, oh, when I was 12, I was really curious about this. When I was 12, or 10 or 9, I would have been Googling everything because I was curious, and my parents weren't talking to me in the way that they were talking to me, but not really. I had books. And so it's this weird space of, I think for most people, just about sex in general, there's this idea that if I talk to them about it, they're going to go out and do it. There's some of that's going on. I don't know how to do it. I turned out okay. They'll be fine. There's a little of that going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Really fine. No, there is just this avoidance of discomfort, and we don't want our kids to be uncomfortable, right? There's that major pushback in the tween and teen years. I just had a mom say that my 12-year-old will not talk to me. He refuses to talk to me and his dad. And what do I do with that? So, if you're in a space where you have not had any kind of sex talks at all, then that's the very first thing. That is one of the most protective things you can do in terms of exposure. And we used to think about talking to kids in terms about sexuality in terms of prevention. We're trying to get them to not do it. Like most of us, that was what we were taught, right? Don't do it. Don't do it. STI. Here are these horrible slides of people with, genital warts everywhere. It's not a thing. That's not a thing. Right? And it's not a thing.
That doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And so prevention. And the reality is, we are sexual beings from the beginning. It's through our entire life. We do sex and relationships in one way or the other our entire lives. It is one of the biggest things we do. And the best thing for your child is to prepare them for this part of life. And, we're talking about the porn, so we need to prepare them for exposure. And the best thing to do to prepare them for exposure is to talk to them openly about sexuality, about, all the things, bodies, boundaries, puberty, baby making, consent, different kinds of sex, birth control, how to have a healthy relationship, LGBTQ stuff, all of it openly, because when they see porn, if they don't have a basis in healthy sexuality that's values-based, that's factually correct, they learn a bunch from porn. They think they use porn as sex education.
Yeah, gosh.
Wow. I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you think about that, using porn as sex education, because they have not been told, they have not been talked about, educated about it.
Yeah. So they think, and this is, actually they say this, like, how do you learn about sex? I learned about sex from porn. And so if you pick it apart, what are they learning about relationships, bodies, intimacy, how you do it from porn? Nothing anyone wants our child to take away, right? Nothing, literally nothing. And so the bummer is that no matter what, even if you are the best sex talking person on the planet, your kid's super well informed, they're still going to see it. Chances are high they're going to use it, but they will have a container for it. They'll understand that it's not real, that nobody looks like that, acts like that, says things like that. No real person's bodies they don't look like that. They don't do those things. Without that explicit conversation, they can't make healthy sense of it. And, I don't think think young people should watch porn. But just understanding that when I believe that knowledge is empowering. And if you've empowered your child with fact-based, evidence-based, correct information, given them tips and tricks of things that work, how to understand when someone is given consent, what consent looks like, that kind of thing, then they feel better. And when they feel better, they do better.
And they make better choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I was really struck by with your whole mission is talking about sex in order to help kids to make good decisions and to grow up to be healthy with sex and in all their relationships. And a lot of that stems from how we see ourselves too.
Absolutely.
And I really, that's so powerful when you say it that way, that we don't want our kids to be taught what sex looks like from porn. Yeah. The head is very powerful. So tell our listeners what's happening out there with our kids being exposed to porn.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No fun. I know. And why is this happening? Like how young, are there statistics around it? Yeah.
So let's start with statistics. And then, I just want to take a deep breath. You could do that because this is not a fun conversation. I'm a big breather, right?
Yeah.
So statistically, what we know is the average age of first exposure is about 9. Now, we don't know for sure, because every 7-year-old that sees it isn't coming and saying, hey, mama, I just saw some naughty business. They're not doing that. So we think it's 9. Absolutely happens younger for sure. It happens accidentally. So I had a client whose daughter was, I think, 7. She Googled horses and made her way to porn. So if you're bored, Google horses, go to images, wait until you see a horse with an erect penis. Can't unsee things, and then pretend you're 9, pretend you're 7. And where are you going to go? Right? Where are you going to go with that? Big penis. You're going to Google big penis, right?
Yeah.
You're going to imagine you're in that headspace. So it happens accidentally. They aren't seeking it out. They misspell something, they want to say beep and they put boob or whatever. And then there you go. So it's happening accidentally. Most kids, especially when they're in elementary school, kind of pre-puberty or barely into puberty, when they see it, they're like, oh, gross, I don't want to look at that. And they stop watching. They don't look at it anymore. They don't necessarily seek it out again, but some kids, it's like picking a scab. They go back because it is stimulating. It is fascinating. It is weird. It's uncomfortable. It's so many things. And some kids just get drawn into it. And you don't know if your kid's going to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You just don't know. When kids are older and puberty is on the march, they see it and they're more likely to go back to it because it does give them more adult-like sexual feelings. So it feels good. But again, scab picky, because it's such a gross analogy. I should find another one. But it's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I don't like it. I can't stop looking because I feel like I get this good feeling. And then they may use it. They may watch it more compulsively. And then when we get into high school, those kids watch it pretty regularly. They, like I said, they use it as sex education. They talk about it. They share links with each other. So do middle schoolers. So they share links.
It happened to my daughter. Yeah. She told me, went over to a friend's house. And her friend was like, you got to watch that. You got to see this. Have you ever seen this before? She just told me. And she's 22. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, it happened.
So then when they get into high school, they use it, they use it for what it's made for. And they also it's just part of their culture. And when you don't have any, sure, some kids are really well sex educated. Some kids know that porn is not a good thing. And they have a different relationship with it, but they still might use it. And, really when we're looking at tweens and teens, what's happening with the tweens and up until from 10, 11, 12 into about 14, 15, they share links. They're much more interested in it. It's fascinating. It's titillating. They kind of tease each other with it. They use it as a sort of a bullying tool. Like I call that like sexual bullying, somebody or teasing. One of my good friends, her daughter first, they were playing best and worst at dinner time. It was the first week of middle school. Best part of your day, worst part of your day. Everybody goes around and it gets around to Arden, worst part of her day. Oh, well, some kid showed me porn on his phone on the bus. And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. They don't have it's like they don't have a filter.
It
just is, I had another mom whose kid was really young and there's hanging out a little bit with some older boys and they were showing him porn on their phones or iPad or something. And so he told her eventually, and then anyway, it just was complicated. And so they don't have any filter about it. And then the other big problem is that parents aren't talking about it.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do when they see it. Arden, who had first week of school on the school bus, she knew to say, dude, what the hell? No, thank you. Or my favorite line is, I think looking at porn is a solo activity. What's wrong with you? Like that, like this sassy, shamey, like what is wrong with you it's such a good way to manage that, and including like I'm thinking about, you had your daughters and about, ask them if they had dick pics, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Get a dick pic and be like, excuse me, what the F is wrong with you? Right. Like, no, thank you. I'm blocking you. Right. All the squares.
Yeah. Being able to take care of yourself in a self-respecting way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, what is wrong with you, rather than them being like a deer in headlights, which I'm imagining you see that a lot, which when you have somebody, show you that you don't take care of yourself, it can be a slow erosion too.
Yes.
Of your self-esteem, feeling like you just have to, the whole consent thing. So I'm not going to get into all that, but it's important. Have a voice.
Yeah, have a voice. And the good news is you're not going to be in person. A whole lot of the time it's going to be over text or DM or whatever. And that's a really safe place to say, you don't have to do a face-to-face. That is super hard. Super hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to porn. So that's kind of the trajectory of things for kids. This sort of the sweet spot, again, not the best way to describe it, of the porn initial looking at sharing, maybe getting, hooked into is around 11 to 14, 15. And again, not every kid, right? Not every kid is going to go down the rabbit hole, but, you're really doing your kids a disservice if you're not, obviously not talking to them about sexuality, but also not really being clear with them about, hey, this is the stuff that you can see and it'll mess you up. It can really mess you up. Right. Gives you the wrong idea about all kinds of things. And, I think especially for girls, we always meet people who have vulvas in our culture, identify as women. We are so objectified and have so much pressure put on us. And it's worse now with the porn culture with young people, because if that's what, their partners expect them to look and act like that's a lot. That is a lot of pressure.
Yes.
And, and not talking with our penis havers about how that, that is not real. And your expectation of your partner, if they're a girl or woman, is unfair and it's not real. Which circles back to giving them that foundation of what does healthy sexuality look like, and figuring out for yourself, how do you want to have these conversations? What should they look like? How do you want to talk about them? What are your values about sexuality? And values are really just what you believe, right? When we say values, it's always so laden. We all have values, and for me, that is the place to start. So if you're late to the sex talk conversation, and if you have not had a conversation with your child, honestly, by the time they're 7, you're late to the conversation. And if you're dealing with a tween, absolutely. If you have not started the conversations, you're late to the conversation. And most people don't know that, right? I just do want to, I know I don't want people to feel bad, but maybe you should feel a little bad. But if you didn't know this, that, we think that fifth grade is the time, or when they ask us questions, that's the time. But it's not, because especially now, because if the average age of porn exposure is 9 and your child does not know about healthy sexuality, then they're going to have this period of time where they're getting all the wrong information and they're not seeing you as their resource. That's the other reason to talk to them, right? You want them to see you as a resource. And the longer you wait, the harder that is, which isn't to say that it can't happen.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say that it can't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
you can start today, no matter where you're at.
Yeah, you can absolutely start today. And so I just, I have a new book called Sex Talks with Tweens, What to Say and How to Say It. And one of the biggest stumbling blocks for parents is what to actually say. What words do I use to explain what, porn is, or periods are, or, the different kinds of sex, or that kind of thing. And it's primarily scripts for parents to use with some sex talk and tips. And it's that way on purpose, because it's so hard for us to find the words, and my words are not perfect. They're not perfect.
Yeah. Yes. Especially when we're so charged, or maybe we didn't have, like me, when I was preparing this, I'm like, I was like, ooh, talking about sex. It's just going to be awkward, but it's so good to be talking about it with you, because it's like, there's freedom in that. But yeah, we didn't have it modeled for us. Maybe we didn't, we've got our own stuff around it.
Right.
So you give the scripts. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I think that helps. It takes one level of anxiety away, because it is not cheating to say, all right, masturbation.
Yeah.
Memorize what I said and get those words out of your mouth. But just backing up the truck a bit, if you need to start the conversations, no matter how old your kid, if your kid is older than 10, then it's really important that you apologize and say, I am really sorry. We haven't been talking about this. I didn't think you were ready. I didn't think I was ready. I'm uncomfortable. No one did this for me, but I know you need this information. I want you to feel better about who you are as a sexual person, have healthy relationships, make good decisions. So here we go. And you just boot the door open. And I'm a super fan of books. So make sure you have books in your show. Books are in your show notes, right? Books are in your show notes.
Yeah.
In your show notes. Check. And books are your friends. There are now safe websites with great videos for kids about sexuality. And once the door's kicked open, you have permission to just start talking. And don't be afraid of the conversations. And it is absolutely okay to do what you did. You're like, I'm really uncomfortable. I feel really awkward. Just say that.
Yeah, that's a great end. And it brings vulnerability to the conversation, that we don't know what to say, but we're going to say it anyway, and it won't be perfect, but we're having the conversation.
And do-overs are fair, right? You have the masturbation conversation and you forget, oh man, I didn't say that, people with clitorises masturbate. You got to go back to that, right? Or whatever you missed, or that it's a safe sex practice, right? Oh, sorry. And you just say, hey, by the way, remember we were talking about masturbation the other day? I forgot to mention. Right. And you hear me, I'm being kind of silly, but it's like, hey, how's the weather going? Hey, how's your day? Talking about the weather, like really calm tone, which just practice that when you're talking about other stuff. So you kind of get it in your bones. So you get the ball rolling. If your kid is 7th, 8th grade, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you don't need to screen. Just talk about all of it. You don't need to be careful. You don't need to pussyfoot around, talking about oral sex. You don't need to pussyfoot around birth control. You don't need to pussyfoot around anything, because porn, chances are high they've seen it. Their friends are going to be talking about it. They're going to be talking with each other about how do you do sex, and they're going to be talking about anal sex, and they're going to think, okay, that's just where you start, right? Lots of kids think that's just part of like getting it going. No, that is not the way we start. Ideally, especially with heterosexual couples, right? Or even gay couples, we just don't start there, right?
Yeah.
That's not beginner. That is not beginner. And so if you're in there giving them all this information, then they're going to you're trustworthy, really important. You're going to be accurate. really important. You're going to share your values. Like what I just said is a value, right? My value is that we do not start out our sex lives with, anal sex. Sorry, everybody. Time to breathe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't like in that's not where we start. We start with hand holding and caressing and right. And that yummy warming up stuff. That's where we start. Right. That's where we start. And then also, I just always have so much to say. And then also just talking about, like with your partner, if your partner wants to do that stuff off the mark, then that's a red flag.
Yeah.
It's a red flag, right?
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. I think to like, is this something I want to be doing?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah.
Knowing for yourself, am I comfortable with this? Being strong enough to say, I don't want to do this. And then on the receiving end, like consent is a two-way street, right? You want your partner to say, yes, yes, I'm sure I want to do this. And any like, okay, that's not a yes. Drinking, drugging, anything, sleeping, tired, anything where they're like, okay, that is not a yes. You want full conscious yes, 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 yes. And especially at the beginning of a relationship, when you're getting to know each other, as you get to know each other better, then that need for like, is that a yes, gets less because you get to know your partner. But yeah, there's a lot. And I think that this can be overwhelming. And also remember, I think about it, if you had this kind of frank, open conversation from your trustworthy adult, where would you be now?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, probably had, a lot less, just been, I think for me, I would have been much more in tune with myself and what I wanted rather than, trying to get the attention of a boy in a way, that wasn't healthy for me.
Yeah.
And that's a biggie to have our kids listening to themselves and understanding, just all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think, for me too, sort of the same thing. I would have been more confident in myself, I think. And I also would have had just healthier relationships because I would have like sooner thought, oh yeah, this isn't for me. Like this person isn't for me, but I'm just going to hang in there because I have a boyfriend. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if I didn't know that those were red flags in terms of a healthy relationship, or I didn't know that, when your gut says this guy ain't right, I'm straight, but like if this guy ain't right, then all right, it ain't right. Or how do you kindly break up with someone? And how do you navigate all that? And we don't have to be all things, right? We can't be all things, but we are capable. I believe every parent is capable of engaging in some kind of conversation.
Well, on your website, you have so many good, in your podcast, in your book, where you give those scripts that are so helpful.
Yeah. I mean, that's my whole goal, you kind of alluded to it, but my mission is to help every child grow up to be a whole, healthy, happy adult. I mean, I need you. I need you, lovely listener, to help me achieve my goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I got the one and he's no longer under my direct control, but I had one person under my direct control. And if we're not looking at, even thinking about this just from a more of a, like, I don't know, mission driven or social services perspective, just think of yourself as a parent. If you're the kind of parent who really is showing up for your child, talking openly about this, really honestly talking openly about porn, your kid is telling, their friends, oh my God, my mom won't shut up about the porn or the sex. And then the friends are like, well, what did she say? And they're like, well, masturbation is a safe sex practice. What the hell is safe sex? Well, that's when you da-da-da. So your kid is being a little sex educator, right? That's happening, which is fine because they'll be accurate. But the other piece is those kids will see you as a safe adult. And so if they are having an issue with a partner, they've been looking at too much porn, they're worried that they, whatever, they have pubic hair, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Or something really yucky is going on, they're going to be really likely to come to you because you've demonstrated that you're open to having these conversations. And every child needs an adult that's not their parent that they can come to. You're safe, you're trustworthy, you'll get them help. if there's an abuse situation, we always say, well, get that other person help, because the person is nearly always known to the child and the family. So, and really, and letting them know. And, I actually had an agreement with one of Milo's best friend's parents, that we had an agreement, Bob and I, that, that Bob could talk to Milo about anything openly, and I could talk to his kids about anything openly, because we trusted each other. And so that Milo knew if he had something going on, he could talk to Bob, or me or Carrie, my spouse, but right.
Yeah.
That one-off person, it's a test drive. Like they might test drive with you. Hey, I'm thinking about having sex with my boyfriend. But if you say more, like, why do you think this is the right time? What's up? Pressure, right? That kind of thing, then you're going to make them think, and you're going to be trustworthy. And then if it's, penis and vagina sex, it's off to the birth control department.
Yeah. We can't have our head in the sand, and the just saying no and the freaking out and don't do it. A lot of times with kids, that'll just make them want to go and do it more.
Oh yeah.
And because we're not, and there's that judgment, and so
and push their natural inclination at this age to just push back against everything. And I know how nothing, and your young adults in your life know everything.
Oh yeah.
Right. Right. I mean, like Milo at 16, he's like, I know everything. I'm like, oh honey. You just go ahead and think that, and I'll just listen to you. And then like oftentimes he'd say, he knew everything about whatever. And then we'd come back to the conversation, and it turns out he did not know everything. And then maybe I knew something.
Tell me all you know. They love that.
Yeah. They don't want to hear that, but they know everything. So, they got it all going on.
Yeah. So going back to the porn, what should parents do? I mean, because I know they're like, oh, I'm scared this is happening, and what do I do?
So first of all, this is something that is taking up head space and anxiety space in your brain and your body and your heart. It is, right? Of course it is. So the first thing you can do for yourself this is all for you. It's for your kids too. But a big chunk of this is to help relieve your anxiety. So obviously I said this, you have to talk with them openly about sexuality. That's the first thing. It's protective. In terms of prevention, you need to use monitoring and filtering. Think about it like this. It's the seatbelt of the internet. And if you think about how we protect our children when they're in cars, right? Bucket, they're in a rear facing car seat in a bucket for too long. Then they get switched around to a regular car seat forever. Then they have a booster until they're 19. And then they finally get to be in the back seat with just a seat belt. And then eventually they're in the front seat, and then they're in the driver's seat. You did not put them in the driver's seat. You didn't even put them in the front seat. Until a whole lot of time has passed. So monitoring and filtering are the seatbelt of the internet. The internet is a place. It's not just porn. You can search out how to kill yourself.
I know.
Right? Yeah. You can search how to sneak alcohol, right? You can search how to self-harm. You can search murder. You can search crime scene. You can search awful.
Yeah, how to become anorexic.
Nice. That sounds pleasant.
Yeah.
That's terrible, right? So monitoring and filtering are the seatbelt of the internet, and they are required. Your child should not be able to get online on any device that they use without some kind of protection. And the problem with tweens and teens is that if you haven't done this yet, and you're going to do it, they're going to push back. And so I am a believer in the parenting tool called bribing. And so you might need to do some bribing to let this happen. And then also, it's a privilege, not a right, to have a phone or an iPad or even a computer. It's a privilege. It's a privilege. And so the price of admittance is that you install monitoring and filtering. So just really quickly, excuse me. The difference, the two things are this: monitoring is watching. So you see where they go online, you see what apps they download, you can see what sites they're going to, you can see what they're up to online. Filtering is blocking terms, like all those nasty things we just talked to. And the monitoring you do all the time. Families have different rules about the monitoring, as long as up until 18 is my recommendation. Like once they turn 18, they're a legal adult. Good luck out there. right? The monitoring stays on. Your family, you got to figure out your family rules about that. The filtering is blocking. And so when they're really little, everything's blocked. As they get older, you bump out loosen the reins. And then by the time they're, 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, they should be able to go anywhere they want, but they know you're watching. So the filtering's off, you're watching. And what happens is that they learn to flex that muscle of self-control. We had monitoring and filtering for Milo. And one evening he was having an adolescent fit.
Anybody relating out there?
Yeah. Hello. About how everything sucked. What?
Yeah.
Right. So this sucks and that sucks. And then he said, and I hate the monitoring. And I said, oh yeah, why? I was all calm because I knew what he was doing. I was like, oh yeah, why? And he's like, I hate it because I can only go to like 3 or 5 websites because I know you're watching. And I said, wow, that must be frustrating. And he said, yeah, it sucks. And he goes storming off. And so I ran downstairs and I was like, Carrie, Custodio's working, because that's what we wanted, right? He was thinking before he searched because he knew we were watching. And as far as I know, he's been great. I only had like a couple of times where I was like, hey, porn. Is like, no, not porn, but whatever. Of course he's looked at porn. He's human. And
yeah.
Anyway.
And
so
it's
out there, right? It's unavoidable. Anyway, so you want these in place because this is the only prevention you got, right? We're going to do preparation by talking with them. This is the only prevention. And so there are great products, links in the show notes. Bark in particular is great. You can install it on every single device, and then you control it from an app, and everybody's devices are on it. So you can control when they're able to be online and not online. It'll alert you when they've gone someplace they shouldn't. And it works really, really well. It's pretty robust. And again, if your kid's 14 and you haven't done this yet, they're going to be pissed, but it's the price of admission and it's your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get mad at them that they're mad about it. Right. This is upset about it. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's on you. It's totally on you. And again, apologize and all of that. And the other thing is this, when kids come to your house, it picks up their phones and you can set it so they can't get on the internet. Oh, so it's really cool. It's a really cool product. And so there's lots of good about it. And the other thing that's good about it is that it's just this. It is really uncomfortable to have a parent say to you, hey, your kid showed my kid porn at your on their phone. Mm-hmm. This is not a good moment. And so if you that's another reason, right? If you don't want that to happen. It's also really hard to say to another parent, hey, my kid was at your house, or your kid showed my kid porn, I just wanted to let you know, because it's not okay. You're putting other kids at risk because of your bubble of they would never or whatever. So there's that. The other thing I recommend is when your child goes to somebody else's house, and this is easier when they're younger, but even, in middle school, just say like, hey, what monitoring are you using? Not are you, but what are you using? Because if you say, are you, they'll say, oh yeah, sure. And you don't know what they're doing. They could have like some little some button pushed on the whatever. And they think that's protecting the kids, and it's not. So when you say, what are you using? They'll say, I'm using Bark, I'm using Circle, I'm using Custodio, I'm using Griffin. And then you're like, excellent, you're good. You're good to go. Your kid's going to be safe there. If they say, oh, I'm using the Apple thing, I think, and the Apple one, the thing on the Apple, and then also on the Chrome, there's a thing, and that's not right. You want a confident, like, yeah, we got this. Yeah, we got this.
Yeah. So what if you asked that and they said, I don't really have anything?
Then you have to make a choice. You can say, okay, great. Thanks for letting me know. I'd appreciate it if the kids were not actually online at all. I'm just a freak show about porn exposure. And, I heard about a kid that Googled how to be anorexic and just throw shit out there. Right. I just like, and just worries me. I know it's kind of kooky, but if they can figure out something else to do, that'd be really awesome. I'd really appreciate it. And then this, if your kids are younger, my rule, and I just told Milo's parents, friends, I was like, hey, I don't, can they just not be online at all while
Yeah.
he's there?
Mhm,
Because he'd
mhm.
tell, right? What'd you do? Nothing. Right. Okay. I know you were. And the rule at our house was that they could not do any kind of movies, internet, anything until they'd been hanging out for at least 3 hours.
Yeah, that's a
Then they
good
could do the
one.
one thing. Then they could do the one thing. What are you going to do? You're going to play Minecraft? Awesome. Gonna do? Yeah. Watch a movie? Yeah.
That's
So
good. That's really
yeah.
good. I know some people that have their kids put the devices in a basket.
That's great.
Yeah. But
That's
then
great.
some kids will say, well, then I'm not going to have anybody come over to our house, and then moms feel like they have to give in versus being able to do it in a more playful way. I think it's the judgment, don't you? It's if we come across as really judgmental, our
Yes.
kids are going to feel judged and they're
Yes.
going to not be as likely to want to have their friends over. But if you can do it in a more playful way
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, everybody, we're going to, put your phones here or staying off for 3 hours, it's a different kind of energy.
Right. And if you also have to be confirming your convictions, nobody batted an eyelash. Like Milo wasn't allowed to play violent video games. And I was like, nope, not happening, please. And they have no problem. And then he started getting ostracized from birthday parties because he couldn't play violent video games. And Carrie and I were like, all right, you can play them at other people's houses. Not
Yeah.
right.
Mhm,
And so,
mhm.
but yeah, you have to be confident. You have to be confident. And then you have to say, hey, yeah, okay, people in the basket, this is how this rolls. You all get a king size Snickers bar for your inconvenience, right? Like what, something that makes it sort of a game, gamifies a little bit, makes it fun, make your house, as fun as it can be. Maybe there are other cool things that kids do there that they don't do anyplace else, they've forgotten how to play. Like we had massive amounts of Legos, right? Like just get the Legos out and see what happens, turn on the music up to 12 and, just find other things for them to do. And it's hard because they may not want to come over to your house, but if you always have the snacks and the cookies in the cookie jar and the bribes and the right, like if you have fun there, if you have fun stuff to do there, then they're going to be more likely to want to engage because I think they're tired.
Yes,
I
yes.
think they're tired.
And they know what's good for them. They know it's good to be off of screens and just with each other. But they're just not used to it,
Yeah.
and they're used to being more on their devices. And so it's like they need some help.
Yeah, they do.
Kind of like with porn, they need help not seeing it.
Yes.
Otherwise, they're gonna
Yeah.
see it and get curious.
Right. And making sense of it and that kind of thing. One thing we did with Milo is that we watched the entirety of that 70s show throughout middle school. And I highly recommend. There's so much that goes on and they don't have devices. And so they have all this kind of shenanigans and fun. And they're teenagers, which is fine for the little people to see the teenagers. And it was really good because we had a lot of different conversations. There's dating, romance, relationships happening, the relationship between the families. And yeah, it's a sitcom, but it was really good. It was a really good connecting time. And it was good for him to see like, oh, okay, right. This is another way of being. And they just sort of hang out and talk. And, I know, from your kiddos that they do just hang out and talk. They aren't constantly on their phones, but they're pretty much on their phones while they're talking. Right. So helping them to see another way, I think is important. And finding those TV shows are a great way to have conversations about sexuality and relationships.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a very good idea. What would that look like for the moms that, are listening so you're watching a show and what would you say? They see somebody dating relationship.
So so in the moment, you could say if there's something that's an interaction between two people and it's a red flag in an unhealthy relationship, in the moment, if you catch it, you can say, oh, that was not a good move. And just mention, oh, that was not okay. Just that. And then later say, hey, remember we were watching and that thing happened? This is what was uncool about that. Just so you know that it's not okay for you to do that to somebody and it's not okay for someone to do that to you. So you can, or you don't say anything and you're like, okay, noted. And then later you say, hey, remember we were watching and I saw this thing. Did you notice? What'd you think? That kind of thing. It's not cheating to plan. It's not cheating to plan. So if you have my book and you're leafing through and you're thinking, oh, I haven't talked about tampons with my son, right? I got to do that. Right. And so then, okay, when am I going to, okay, we're going to the drugstore. Okay. And then you have this moment. And you're like, oh, hey, you know what? We never talked about this. You know how girls and women have periods and this thing called tampon, yada, yada, yada. Right. And they're so dumb and self-centered. They might be like, you're being weird. Why are you talking to me about this? And that's going to last about a nanosecond. Right. They don't know that we're cheating. They don't know that you're scripted. They don't know that you have a checklist. They don't know. They don't pay attention. They don't pay enough attention to us. And if they call you out and say, what the hell was that? And you just say, I just had to talk to you about that. I didn't know how to make it easy. So I just thought I'll just swing it. I'll wing it. And right. No harm, no foul. And then they're going to tell a story about how you were super weirdo and talked about tampons when, whatever. So
they're secretly glad. They will never tell you that you are actually talking to them about it.
Totally. And if you don't have a period, it is such a good thing to be like some people who don't have periods have like tampons and pads in their backpacks for their friends, just in case, right? Isn't that the sweetest? Or just telling if your boy hangs around with girls and one of them starts her period, and if they have a sweatshirt, like give the sweatshirt to tie around her waist, like be that kind of person for a friend, right? So if they're like, oh my God, my period started, and your son is capable of saying, uh-oh, that sucks. Here, do you want my sweatshirt? Like you coached them. You coach them.
Yeah, well, and it makes him more comfortable with that, because if a boy hasn't heard about that, I'm sitting here going, oh, I never talked to my son about that.
Oh, well.
But, oh, wow. But, he had 2 sisters, so he found out, I'm sure, the hard way. But anyway, it'll make your son very sensitive to that, because he knows what it is.
Yeah, and if he has
thoughtful,
and if he's straight, his partners are going to bleed most likely. Chances are very high. Right?
Yeah.
Chances are very high. So
yeah,
I mean, I think that just also just if you're parenting with someone, or you have a good friend and you haven't started these conversations, talk about it. Have a conversation about, what do you want to talk about? What's important to you? What are your values? What do you hope for your kids? Right? I think we said this at the top, or I've talked to a lot of people today. Right? I don't know what I said, but have a conversation. You don't have to have the sex talk with your kids. You can just start out talking to your partner or to your best friend, if you're parenting on your own or whatever. And like, how do you want to approach this? What do you hope for your kids? And then that helps you clear the path, right? Most of us don't want for our kids what happened to us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I'm struck by what you're saying is you have to really have the conversation first, because what I see parents do is, rather than have the conversation, they're trying to control.
Yep.
And so they're using all of the bark, which is awesome. We recommend bark too. But they're trying to massively monitor things without having the conversation. And so then it feels like punishment, it feels punitive, it feels judgmental. It's like, and they tend to rebel against that, versus coming alongside of them, and they know, like you said, that you're safe, that you're for them, that you're for them. You're not trying to like punish them and control them. It's yeah. So I really like to be talking, not just trying to control. It'll feel very different.
Yeah. And if you use the same communication style that you use with your friends, that works a lot better too. You're not abdicating your throne as their parent, but if your communication style is more along the lines of, hey, what's going on with like my friend's older brother just had a cancer diagnosis and a bunch of surgeries. And so I was like, hey, what's up with your brother? Genuine concern and curiosity, right? So genuine concern and curiosity, as opposed to me saying, what is up with your brother? What's up with your brother? Right? What's up with your friends? Right? Who wants to talk to that?
Yeah.
It's just sort of, hey, what's up with your friends? What's going on? What are you thinking about this? How'd school go today? What's going on in your math class? Just like, they try to, especially with adolescents, you try to change your tone. Try to change your tone.
Yes.
And practice on the easy stuff. They get in the car. Well, actually, I'm sure you talk about this, is you never say when they come home from school, from work, get in the car, practice. You never ask them a question. Just say, hey, it's good to see you, and shut up.
I know. Yeah.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
I know it is.
It's
just
so
let
magical.
them get their snack and go off and chill out, and they're like cats. Let them, go hide out under the bed, and then they'll come out.
Exactly. It's so hard to do that. But then when you do inquire, right, genuine curiosity, not, we always have an agenda, right? How's math? We're really wondering, have you done your effing homework? Right? Right. How's math? What's the status of your homework? That kind of, anyway. So practice with things that are not hard on you. Like the sex talk stuff is going to be harder on you. So practice with, how was your game? What's going on? Practice your tone. Mind your judger. Like you said.
Mind your judger. Exactly.
Mind your judger. Let's make a t-shirt. Mind your judger.
Like, that'll be a good one for moms of tweens and teens.
Yes, it would.
We got a t-shirt there.
Yeah, there you go. You can have it. Mind your judger.
Yeah.
And only we will know what it means.
Have it on a bracelet so we can just look at it, remind ourselves.
Right. Actually on an elastic one. So you can like, oh, damn, I didn't mind my judger. Snap.
Well, as for getting ready to close, what are some things that, if your kid has seen porn, what would you say to them? Like when you think about saying, you covered it a little bit, but how should they explain why porn is not good? How can you explain why porn is not a good thing for them?
That's a really great question. If your child is exposed, the first things that when you find out is they are not in trouble. That's the very first thing. And you need to say, I'm super sorry this happened. You are not in trouble, because all number of reasons. You want them to be connected to you because it can be traumatizing. How are you feeling? What do you think about what you saw? Do you have any questions? And calm, right? And see what they do. You are going to need to, if you figure out they've been watching a lot for a long time, probably going to need some therapy because not good. And then find out, kind of determine how much they've seen. They don't always tell the truth. So you might say, have you seen this before? Where, when, how often have you seen it? How often have you looked at it? See what they say. You're just doing this info gather. And then say, this is grown-up stuff. This is adult stuff. It's made for adults. Obviously it's people having sex, and sex is not for kids. Your heart, your mind, your body are not ready to see something like that, to have sex. And, I'm really sorry that you saw that. Just so you know, when real people have sex, it looks nothing like that. And that whole thing about their bodies, right? They don't make those noises. They don't do those things. It's not, two women and a goat, it's not that. It's usually more tender, intimate, et cetera, et cetera. And then you just, that's about all you can say. And then you can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get you some books about healthy sexuality. Again, I'm really sorry this happened to you. We're going to need to talk about sex more now, just so we should have been talking about it more, just so you really understand this. So again, any questions at all, let me know. You can text me, you can write me a note. I just want you to feel okay about this. So that's a pretty clean, simple, right? You're not using a lot of words, and then say, it's really normal to feel really weird and gross after seeing this. There's nothing wrong with you. And you can say, your friends probably watch it and they don't seem like they don't have any problem with it. They probably do and are pretending they don't. Like, this is really not kid stuff.
Well, and it's confusing because they feel those sexual good feelings, but at the same time it feels gross. So then they have shame around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, acknowledging that too. It's like, yeah, I can give you some good sexual feelings, but also it's not okay for you to get sexual feelings from something that is so grown up. It's
Yeah.
confusing for you, right?
Mhm.
You're not ready for that. And again, it's normal to have sexual feelings. There are safer ways for you to have those sexual feelings. We do not need to talk about that right now. Right. Right. And then keep it short and sweet. Watch their behavior. If they've been watching a lot, then they're probably going to need some therapy. If you suspect your child is watching porn, if they're sneaking phone, if they are like being online when they shouldn't, then it's probably a problem.
Okay.
Any number of problems, but these days I just go straight to porn because I would.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course I do.
Yeah.
Of course I do. Yeah.
Well, that is very helpful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Oh
for what
yeah.
you're putting out into the world and helping us with like there's so much to talk about around this. I mean, it's just, gosh, there's just a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
you can come back and talk about dating, talk about, having the sex talk about consent, just
Yeah.
so many things.
Yeah.
And we need so much support around this.
Yes.
So
Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you for trusting me with your people. I know this is a challenging one, right? Like you don't know me very well. You just listen to my podcast and, we were just having a funny conversation about, I was on a podcast when the woman was not sane. So, right. He was not sane. It was weird. But yeah, thank you for trusting me with your people. And, I just want to say too, that Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, pick something that feels doable. I like to give a little homework. So there's a bunch of stuff in the show notes. Go look at one thing. Go look at Bark.
yeah.
Just look at Bark.
Bark has very good customer service,
Yeah.
so they can really help you. I think parents get overwhelmed thinking it's going to be really difficult, but they're very helpful.
Yeah. So pick one go look at a book, go look at Bark, go look at my website, go buy my book, right? Do one little thing, just one, and then make a little plan about what your next steps are going to be. And you'll feel better.
Yeah, it is when we're intentional, when we're proactive, like your book, getting the scripts, like to know, okay, these are the things that I can talk about and how to weave them in.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it a lot easier. And once you get going, you can keep going. And they may hate it in the moment. Who cares? Welcome to life. In the long run, they will thank you. They will thank you.
Yep. They're not going to like it, especially tweens and teens. Oh, mom, stop being gross, but still talk about it.
Absolutely.
And admit it's awkward. I feel awkward talking about it too.
Me too, sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And tell them where to find you.
So my website is birdsandbeesandkids.com, and you can find all my books and other stuff there. And if you're a podcast listener, so go check out my podcast. It's called Just Say This. It's Q&A style. So people call or email me questions and I answer them on the show. I love advice columns. So my show's an advice column.
Yeah. It's great too, because they're short. They're like little, you call it something. I forget. Like
I have chirps. So I have full episodes where I'll do probably average of 3 questions, and it's a hodgepodge: preschooler, tweener, teenager, personal question about a parent, like their own business. So it's a total hodgepodge. Sometimes I have themes because we just had the penis show. Is that the penis show. And then in between every other week, I have a chirp, which is just a script. Like I just did one. I don't know when the show's this is coming out, but I have one I just did one on abstinence. What's abstinence? How do you talk about it? That's all
it's out because I listened.
Yeah, that was actually today. It came out today.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, because I was listening.
Yeah. So, so those are I like podcast to podcast, right? That's where you're doing this already. And then I occasionally have guest stars. So that's also fun for me. They come on and they answer questions with me. They talk about their expertise. And then they answer questions with me. So that's my wee little podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Amy, tell them the name of your book again. And when is it coming out?
It should be out in April. So it is called Sex Talks with Tweens: What to Say and How to Say It.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll be sharing it all. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. It's great to see you and great conversation. Thank you.